Welcome to 10 Questions. Profiles from a Distance. A Dirtbag NPR production. Question number 1.
Introduce yourself like you're writing a Tinder bio. All the pertinent information, a few quirks.
Hi, I'm Jack. I am a former stand-up comic and current podcaster and occult magician, and I stand at a cool, crisp 6 foot.
Yes, Jack is a former stand-up comedian, apparently, again. He's flip-flopped on this a few times over the years, and I have no problem with that. Other than not getting to see him on stage in the future, I support his decision to become a podcaster. I think we need to have a better word for podcasting. I still think it sounds too internet-y to attract more of a mainstream audience. I didn't know that you were 6 foot tall. It seemed like we were always about the same height. I could be wrong. Nice play. Moving on.
Question number 2.
What's the first experience as a child that you truly remember? Whether it's a birthday party or mowing the lawn. Something like that.
I'm not going to share my earliest memory because that's slightly personal, but I'll tell you one of my earliest memories. It's waking up in my crib as a toddler, if not a baby, and realizing that my mother had gone to work, and I looked out towards the front door and I said rather plaintively, "Mommy," as I reached my hand over the crib. And then I turned and I saw my grandfather on a couch just waking up, and he gave me this big toothy smile.
I love that you were a spooky infant. That excerpts of your childhood start out like the beginning of a Japanese horror movie. I could completely see you having answered this question. Well, I remember crawling out of a well and then wreaking havoc on a town.
Question number 3.
Do you have a hobby you always wanted to pursue that you never followed through on?
That always sits in the back of your mind?
I'm going to be honest, I don't really have any hobbies that I never pursued that haunt me. I guess I'm just a self-actualized guy.
Since you're a self-actualized man, I will pick a hobby for you. I think you should learn how to cook. We've been on the phone a lot while it seems like you're struggling in the kitchen, and I think that might serve you well.
Question number 4.
What's something you believe to be true that most people think is false?
I have an animist worldview, so I believe that tables, chairs, cars, towns themselves are alive and count as people. And I imagine most people think that that's false.
An animist worldview makes me think about Beauty and the Beast. Like a clock or a candlestick or a teacup might be my friend. Or I guess my enemy, which is way scarier. I do like the idea of a town having a energy, a spirit, perhaps a persona. Persona? Many towns and cities do have different flavors, even on a very small level. I'm sure we could all think of one town in the area where we grew up that seemed to have a darker energy. That was probably not dictated by finance. It was probably dictated by something we don't understand.
Question number 5.
How much time would you have to spend alone before the freedom of it wore off and you became bored or depressed?
I don't know the exact time frame, but it's definitely less than 24 hours before the darkness sets in.
Mother. Less than 24 hours? I agree with that one. Then you hit that point where you can't stare at a screen any longer. And that's when the darkness sets in. And then you hit a point where you're just talking to yourself, perhaps pacing. I've been there.
Question number 6.
What's a favorite joke of yours or someone else's?
Now, I said earlier that I no longer do stand-up because I really don't think stand-up exists in the post-COVID world. But back when stand-up used to take place, I loved it whenever any of the comics on stage would talk about me. Any kind of riff or banter with me, I just thought was excellent.
Let me tell you about Jack Steiger. Jack Steiger is the Iggy Azalea of New Jersey comedy. He has a fake accent, he's appropriating hip-hop culture, and I want to smack that ass.
Question number 7.
Make up something that sounds like a racial slur, then use it in a sentence. For example, he's a real soup sipper, if you know what I mean.
This question terrifies me, and I refuse to answer it.
I got one for you. It's a brogan. The Australian term for white trash is bogan, and here in America we have Joe Rogan. So, pseudo-intellectual, macho, white trash is a brogan. For example, I was at the gym on the treadmill, and this brogan came up and said I could increase my cardio output if I ate elk and wore ankle weights.
Question number 8.
What's a strange fact about you? I didn't eat a hot dog till I was 37 years old.
I can do this weird claw thing with my foot where I can kind of extend some of the toes. I can kind of make this claw formation with the toes on my feet, and I can pick things up. My grandpa really doesn't like it when I do that, and kind of like make the claw, and then I kind of just reach out towards his face with it sometimes. He really tells me not to do that.
For some reason, when you say claw, the image of a dirty prosthetic hand comes to mind. A overused, undercleaned plastic hand. I don't know where it's been. How did it happen in the first place? There's so many questions. I do and don't want to see this weird foot action in person. Moving on.
Question number 9.
What's your favorite piece of art? Whether it's an album, movie, painting or book.
I really liked the first half of X-Men First Class, but I was high on Percocets that I was prescribed for pain and fell asleep in the middle of the film. And the next day I finished it, and it was the second half was disappointing, and it may have just been the Percocets that made me enjoy the first part of that movie.
You liked the first half of First Class, which means you liked a quarter of the first class, and then later on, less. There's a mathematical equation in here that I am incapable of dealing with. I was on Percocets after a surgery, and I watched a movie called High Tension, which had a plot twist that I could not understand. I assumed it was the drugs that were confusing me, which led me to internet research, which led me to fan theory rabbit holes, which led me to 5 o'clock in the morning, realizing I had wasted an entire night.
Question 10.
Final question.
Where do you want to be in 5 years?
In 5 years, my goal is to be part mushroom. I want to do so many psychedelic mushrooms that I become part mushroom.
Makes me think about David the Gnome and all the mushrooms on that show growing up. Jack the Gnome, very interesting. I hope you pursue this. Mushrooms are the largest structures, or the largest living creatures on Earth, I believe. The psyllium that goes underneath the ground connects for miles and miles. Little Neil deGrasse Tyson voice for you there. Mushroom spores can survive in the vacuum of space, which makes one wonder how many of them might be extraterrestrial. Another interesting fact. So I hope this pursuit works out well for you. I'll be friends with a mushroom. I mean, I don't know what we'll do for an activity. I guess I'll just bring over bread and let you grow on it. I'm picturing it like a little bit of a Groot situation, if that makes sense. So David the Gnome plus Groot plus Terrence McKenna. I got it.
This has been a Dirtbag NPR production. Please link, subscribe, and share.